Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is the art of creating mental health wealth. What an important topic. Wherever you are in the world, I know for sure you must know someone who is impacted by the pandemic and all the things going on in the world. And people have really been trying to pull themselves together, to pick themselves up, to support each other. And it's tough. It's a difficult journey. And so what we must remember is there are ways that we can express ourselves to really help us with our mental health. And this is through the arts, through the creative process. Joining me for this show is my co-host and friend, JENETTA Barry, the Epiphany Process. Let's welcome her, and then we'll bring out our guest.
Hello,
Hi, JENETTA.
Dr. JACALYN. Hi. Again, fabulous to be back with you once again in this, I think, vital spot for so many. So thank you for creating this space with me.
Thank you so much, JENETTA. You know, I recently went from Florida to New Jersey and set up the whole studio again. And I was just thinking to myself, what an incredible journey it's been from when we started. And I was here in New Jersey, went to Florida and came back. It's been full circle, as you will. And I'm just appreciative of you and all of our team members and our fabulous guests. So thank you for your contributions as well.
Honor and a privilege.
JENETTA, before we bring out our guest, Robert p.french, who's been here before, and he's a fantastic author, and he's done so many wonderful things, which we'll talk about. But I want to spotlight you for people who are joining us for the first time. We have new radio channels, and people are listening, people are watching. So tell us all about JENETTA Barry and the Epiphany Process. What is it?
Oh, thank you, Dr. JACALYN. The Epiphany Process was born out of my greatest life test. And funnily enough, I thought my greatest life test had come and gone. 22 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer in the uterus. And the subsequent treatment nearly killed me. And I thought, having got through that with small children, young children in tow, that was it. And unbeknownst to me, my greatest life test was still to happen. And it happened one day when I was applying tough love to my 16-year-old daughter, Jennifer. And it escalated into an enormous argument where she left in a rage to pack and leave home. And after a while, I just sensed something wasn't right. And I went to find her. And I found her in her bathroom, hanging with a broken neck. It was devastating. My whole life went to ground zero in that moment of finding her, and the conflict that whole thing created within me as a human being and as a mother. And I really didn't think I'd ever get through it. And prophetically, 9 months after Jenny died, I had a crossing over moment where I realized that I'd forgotten I had choice in whatever I was dealing with. And I didn't need to define myself by the label of the mother who lost her child to suicide after an argument. It was part of who I am, not all of who I was, and that I would find every way and mean to get through it. And so I started studying and researching, and it was an incredibly difficult journey. I had to walk the talk and talk the talk. There were times where I didn't think I'd manage it, but I did. I always laugh and say I didn't have a JENETTA to help me. And subsequently, I've been able to help thousands of people across the world online for 14, 15 years now with the epiphany process, really accurately with some very serious happenings and challenges that they were dealing with. And they're now living inspired lives and able to deal with challenges really, really powerfully. So it's been a very precious journey for me as I've been able to hand the baton over to more and more people, and they can live inspired lives.
Jeanette, every time I hear your story, I'm just so moved, and I just appreciate you so much, because having to help other people means that you have to share your story over and over again. And I'm sure it brings it to top of mind where, maybe you were able to have a little space and some distance, and then there it is. And so that takes a lot of courage. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it does. There was a time where I thought I've done with it and don't want to share it anymore. And then with time, I realized that it was really important it got shared, and that authentic openness about what is and what isn't is important.
Yes, I agree with you. And our guest who's here today, he's very successful in his own right, and yet he has challenges with mental health, and he's been so brave to come forward, and he's going to be sharing with us today. He's a former software developer, and he's also a former actor, and he's a thriller and mystery author, and he's the author of the Cal Rogan Mysteries. So we're going to bring him out and hear more about his story and congratulate him for being so brave. Welcome, Robert p.french. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you again, Dr. JACALYN. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So I want to get into the work that you're doing because it's so important, but I want to start off with just, again, thanking you for your courage to come forward, because maybe there are people out there who are fans of yours and have no idea that this is what is going on behind the scenes. And backstage, you just shared something with us that from when we interviewed you last until now, something had taken place. So could you just share a little bit with our audience about what it is that you're going through from in terms of your mental peace of mind, or lack thereof?
Lack thereof, yes. I only realized a few years ago that my whole life I'd been subject to depression. And a couple of years ago, I felt really bad. And I started to think about, I'd wake up in the morning thinking, gee, I didn't die last night. That's a bit of a shame. And eventually I went to my doctor, who prescribed some medication that brought me out of it. And since that time, I also started mindfulness meditation, which is a great bestower of perspective. Nonetheless, about 4 months ago, I slipped into another depression, and I did, I think, what is the typical thing. I said to myself, oh, you can shake this off. You'll be fine. The meditation will get you through. But it didn't. And so after a couple of months, I talked to my doctor, and he put me on a medication, and that felt like it was working a little bit. And the last time I spoke to you, Dr. JACALYN, I felt that maybe I was okay again, but I wasn't, and it required a change of medication to just another one, and that's worked fine. I pulled out of the depression about a week or 10 days ago, and I know that I'm out of the depression because I can sit at the keyboard and write. And so since then, I've been working on my new book, and so I'm feeling pretty good. But it was 4 long, hard months.
And while I have you on Spotlight, thank you for sharing that. What is it that you go through during this process? So you wake up and you're just wish maybe you hadn't, and then how do you handle your day?
Well, I've always been very organized, and I have my daily tasks and so on. And what I find that I do is I focus on the tasks that are routine, that will absorb my mind and that aren't the important tasks. You know, we've all got tasks that are urgent. We have tasks that are important. And sometimes we have tasks that are urgent and important. But I just kind of try and numb my mind. And, you know, fortunately, I have a very supportive family. My wife and my youngest son, who's still at home, are just wonderful. And this sounds silly, perhaps, but we recently got a golden retriever. And just to have that dog around and to, you know, he's very friendly, comes up and licks me and chats to me. And that makes a huge difference as well. But I somehow managed to get through. But a lot of my time, for example, I try and block off writing time. And the writing time, my mind is I try and write, but I can't. So, or I write something and I'll look at it and I'll say, oh, that is rubbish. So, yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. It sounds like when you're feeling this way that you're really tough on yourself when it comes to your work also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I've got this thing that every book must be better in some way than the next. So I've got very high standards of what I'm writing. And I'm passionate about the feel and the texture of the words on the page. And when I'm depressed, it all comes out very, very dark.
So I wanted to ask you, because I really relate to what you're talking about. I actually battle to write a lot of the time because my inner critic just takes over, and I find I have to talk to a microphone, and then I take those writings transcribed, and that helps me. But when you're feeling like that, have you ever noticed that sometimes being in that dark place helps you with your plot, or helps you once you get out of it? Is any part of it beneficial?
Actually, yes. I had a strange thing happen when I was on the first medication. I would have quite vivid dreams, and I woke up out of this dream that was two women looking down at a dead body. And I thought, well, what was that all about? And I actually constructed a plot line around it. And I actually wrote it down, which was amazing because I wasn't writing anything. But I've reviewed what I wrote, and it's way too dark for my books are quite dark. My protagonist is a drug addicted ex-cop, and so it can get quite dark in places. But this was really, really dark. But with a bit of modification, I can definitely use it. And I might even be able to use it in the book that I'm working on right now. So sometimes things do come to you. And in fact, lots of things come to you, especially when you first start a medication. I think, you know, dreams are much more vivid. But I've never actually written it down before. So I'm getting I suppose depression will hit me again at some point, but I will certainly take the time to write down some of these weird ideas.
Yeah, exactly. What you've just encapsulated there is something I found again and again, because without your depression, there wouldn't possibly be Cal Rogan Mysteries. And
you're right.
And this is where it blows me out of the water, because I think we creatives can be very hard on ourselves, and I hear that coming out from you as well. And when it's possible to soften that conversation and see where in being blocked, where in being critical, where in being depressed it's helped you. And one of the things in reading and researching about you was your amazing journey where you thought you had a manuscript and then you found you didn't, and that you were able to stop and go, I haven't, and start again. I'd love you to share that part with our viewers and listeners. It's an amazing journey.
Well, certainly, yes. I took, when I first started writing, I was doing it part-time because I was still working, and I made several attempts at writing books, and none of them worked out. And finally, I finished a novel, and I thought, this is great. So I sent it out to over 100 agents and publishers, because heavens knows it was a great book and they were going to jump at it. And I got back 70 rejection letters. And so I went to a writers' conference, and with the purpose of learning how to pitch, because it couldn't be the book they were rejecting, it was my pitch was bad, right? So I started to go to the first day of the conference. It wasn't about how to write a pitch, but it was about the craft of writing. And I took 4 courses, 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. They were both like 2-hour courses. And suddenly I was aghast. I mean, it just crushed me, because I realized I didn't know how to write. So I switched, and all the courses I took during that conference were about the craft. And luckily, I met an editor there, and I presented her with the book that I thought was so wonderful. And she gave me a very kind 37-page report on what was right and wrong with it. And I realized that this book was actually pretty much a non-starter. So I kind of abandoned it and thought, well, I've got to find another book somehow. And a very strange thing happened. I was doing a consulting project for a small software company, and their offices were in the dodgy part of town. And every day going to their office, I would walk past, I'd step my way past needles lying on the floor and bits of drug paraphernalia. But I used to walk past an alley every day. And the alley was full of drug addicts, and they would be sitting down, eating, drinking, shooting up. Sometimes you'd see somebody asleep with a needle hanging from their arm. They used it as their bedroom, living room, and toilet. It was really horrible. It was frightening. It was very, very creepy. And I had breakfast one day with my editor, and I told her about this, and she said, and I said to her, I got obsessed with this thought, my God, what must it be like to wake up in that alley? And it was a very dark thought. But I talked to my editor, and we thought maybe a businessman, and how about a lawyer? Because everyone wants a lawyer to wake up in an alley like that. And then I thought, it would be ironic if it were a cop who'd spent all his life dealing with drug addicts. Let's make it a cop. And that's how the Cal Rogan books came together.
Wow. Would you, another question attached to that one, would you say, or where would you say, having written that first manuscript, it helped you with your second, that if you hadn't written that first manuscript, there would be a missing in the second? Would you be able to identify that?
Yeah, I think so, because I made the mistake that many writers make, and that is that I read voraciously, and I made the mistake of saying, well, I could write. Sometimes I'd read a book that wasn't very good, and I'd say, I could write a better book than that. Well, turns out I couldn't. So the adversity of having a book that just was a non-starter. I mean, it was quite upsetting that I realized that this book just wasn't ever going to see the light of day. Without that, I don't think I would have embraced learning the craft of writing the way I did. I became, a bit obsessive about it. I took lots of courses. I read lots and lots of books. One book really did it for me. It really, I followed one tiny bit of it, major, important bit of advice in that book, and I've lived by that through all the novels, and the results have been quite wonderful.
Robert, it's really fascinating. A question I have for you is, I've interviewed a number of people who have been homeless, who've had mental health issues and ended up on the street. And obviously what you saw really made an impression on you that you were able to channel into your writing. What were your feelings when you saw these people, knowing that you have your own challenges with mental health? Were you ever thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, I hope I don't end up like that? Or could this happen to me if I don't do something?
Mm-hmm. That's a very, very, very good question. Yes. I would often think what it would be like for me to wake up in that alley. And when it really comes down to it, mental health can be so capricious that any one of us could end up in that alley. Some of the people in the alley were, most of them were drug addicts or alcoholics, but there were people I subsequently learned who were neither, who were just struggling with mental health issues. And the insidious thing is we have no true control over the chemistry of our brains unless we are able to make a choice to do something. And for many of those people, the chemistry of their brains does not allow them to make that choice. JENETTA, you mentioned making a choice, and that's a great gift that you are able to do that. And when I hear your story, I mean, my adversities are nothing. I've never had anything as devastating happen to me. But I was able to make the choice to pick up the phone and call my doctor. But many people are unable to make that choice, and only if someone else kind of makes it for them will they get back on the road to mental health. When I was researching drug addiction, and my complete attitude towards drug addiction and my attitude towards homeless people changed, and my views on the law, drug addiction and the law, changed completely. One of the greatest things about the Cal Rogan series is it required a lot of research in the early days, and I think I became a better person for that research.
Wow. I mean, you've blown me away with what you're saying, because I strongly believe, although my story is a pretty mind-boggling story for everybody or many, I do believe that the journey we each take has contents to it, just in a different form to what I dealt with. And I believe that it was like a pilgrimage for you, from what I can hear, and that takes a lot of guts, really, to move forward the way you have and to create these novels. And I can only salute you in that, because I just think your journey's been very similar to mine in a different form.
Mm-hmm.
And
sorry, go on.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I consider myself incredibly lucky. I have a genetic heritage that both my parents were spry and healthy until they died in their mid-90s. And somehow I probably from my mother, I have the persistence gene. And when I started writing, and from the day I started writing until my first book was actually published, it was 8 years. And fortunately, I persisted. But that's just a matter of luck. I've just got that in my makeup, and so I feel very, very lucky to have that.
Robert, there's so much more we want to ask you about. We need to take a break and hear from some of our sponsors. So we will do that, and then we'll be back with more. And I appreciate you being here and sharing your story. It makes a big difference to helping other people. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back on USA Global TV and Radio.
Take a moment. Take a moment.
Take a moment.
Take a moment. Take a moment.
Take a moment.
Take a moment.
Take a moment.
Take a moment.
Take a moment.
Take a moment.
Take a moment.
Take a moment.
So I've had the privilege of photographing some incredible people over the years, and during each shoot I've asked the subject to close their eyes and take themselves to a peaceful place just for a few seconds. I've found that this really helps to refresh the energy between the camera and the subject. They had an energy that was quite special and quite different from the rest of the shoot. The collection grew, and now it feels the right time to use it for something good. I think it'd be amazing if we could help to raise awareness and involve people in the discussion about mental health. So what we're asking to do is for everyone to upload their own self-portraits. All of these portraits will become part of a massive artwork. I'm really excited to see this project go from hundreds of pictures to thousands of pictures. Essentially, an ever-evolving artwork that says we're all in this together.
Close your eyes and take a moment.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.
military sometimes have to endure. I don't know if I'd have the strength to endure that. You know, having the strength to go and fight and serve for your country, that's one thing. But enduring the aftermath of that, I think there's more bravery in that. Quite amazing.
Yeah, that endurance, because it's a lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Very,
it
very
is.
true.
And we thank all of those who honor our countries and support us and go out there and risk their lives. And then when they come back, they have to really start a whole different way of living, which I don't know anything about that, but we are grateful to our sponsors. And thank you for mentioning that, Robert. A question I have for you, when I was watching that sponsorship and I thought about what your journey's been, JENETTA, what you've shared about your journey, is that we have people around us who are really vital in our journey. Will they stand by us and support us? And what if they don't? What if we have people in our lives who say, you know what, this is something I didn't sign up for this. I don't want to deal with this. What's your story been when it comes to your closest circle of people and how they've lifted you up and been there by your side through this journey?
That's another great question. I didn't talk to my family about depression for the longest time. Even when I had the bout a couple of years ago that the medication got me out of it, I still didn't really talk to my family. But this time I did. And I had some trepidation about talking to family. I have older kids, adult kids. I in some way, I felt, I was letting them down in some way by being depressed. But when I finally managed to, bring it up with my wife, I was, overwhelmed with how supportive she was. Although she doesn't suffer from depression herself, she completely accepted the fact that I was clinically depressed, and I didn't need to convince her of anything. And even my youngest, who's still at home, he was just great about it. He would come up and give me random hugs. But it was difficult telling people. But once I'd actually been on your program, I sent out my newsletter. You caused me a lot of work, let me tell you. I sent out my regular newsletter to my readers, and I embedded the clip of the previous show. And I hadn't written to my news readers in months, so I wrote to apologize and tell them why. And lots of people watched the video, and I was inundated with email, hundreds and hundreds of emails from my readers. And I have a rule that I reply to every email that a reader sends me. So I guess there was 5 hours of work in replying to those emails, but the outpouring of support and love and people, a couple of things were really wonderful. A couple of people said, I've been suffering the same way myself, and you convinced me I should go and talk to my doctor. Whether they talk to their medical doctor, the first step is talking to somebody. And I know that people can get through depression without drugs by, the sort of work that both of you do. And the way out for everybody, it can be different. But it really came home to me how many people have depression because of the emails I got. Quite a few people talked about their own depression or depression of family members. But it was so gratifying to get that it was an outpouring of love from my readers, and I was very touched by that.
I just love it when people find that courage to step forward as you have done and say, this is where I am, I'm vulnerable, I'm compromised. And then they realize that in that moment of stepping forward, they're showing their greatest strength, because that's what I'm hearing, is the strength that you are exuding from what you had perceived was your greatest weakness is inspiring so many other people. Honor and salute you, because it takes a lot of courage to get there.
Well, thank you. I don't really want to take the, you know, I think it's a lot of luck.
Take it.
I think it was a lot. I'll take it. Okay. Thank you very much. I think it was, you know, a lot of, I was very lucky. And I know lots of other people aren't. I never embraced the idea of suicide. I thought about it. I thought about how easy it would be to do. I have some medication that I take regularly that is a blood thinner, and that would be an easy, well, I don't know if it'd be easy, but it would be a route to shaking off this mortal coil. But there was something that always would stop me from doing that, is I couldn't do that to my wife and my children. So that I was safe from taking that last step. But I sure thought about it a lot. And I would say to anybody who is thinking about this, talk to just one person. You know, if you talk to just one person, it may not be somebody close to you, right? Talk to a doctor, but talk to just one person, because maybe that will get you to talk to somebody else, and maybe talk to somebody else until you get to talk to somebody like JENETTA or Dr. JACALYN, and or you talk to your doctor, but talk to one person.
Thank you so much, Robert. Absolutely. A question I have for both of you in alignment with what we're discussing is, when you realize you have the power to help other people, there's a responsibility that comes with that. And Robert, you talked about it. You got all these emails and you took the time to write back to each person. JENETTA, you know exactly what I'm saying. How does that responsibility impact your own well-being? Because now it's actually another layer that's added on top, because it's not just about you anymore. Now it's about all the people you're inspiring through your work. And that can be daunting. It can be exhilarating, but you know that responsibility is there. So who would like to answer that first?
Go ahead, JENETTA. I feel like I've spoken too much.
It's your show. One of the things that my journey has taught me is to understand that there's only so much you can do to be there for someone and assist them. Because, in fact, I had exactly this happen this week, where somebody who's really benefited from the process, can't sing its praises enough, wanted to introduce me in the process to their best friend. And in actual fact, I had to say, you're not actually my client. And the reason for that is, A, the person introducing them was wanting to rescue or fix them and or fix them. And that comes with a charge that is different from just introducing from the heart, knowing that it could make a difference to that person. And I likened it, I said, it would be like going to taking somebody who is an addict, talking about addicts. Not that I'm saying depression is addiction, but to liken it, taking an addict to the AA and saying, now do the AA work. The person has got to want to do the work before I can help them. If they're in the perception that they need to be rescued or they need to be fixed by something or someone outside themselves, then there's still something within their psyche that is serving them in their pain, and I can't help them. So that helps me to become very clear and focused as to who I can and can't help and where my responsibility is without becoming overly responsible.
Mm-hmm. Two words you just said there, clear and focused. In responding to all these emails that I got from my readers, it made me clear and focused. Because I was able to, interact with them and hear their stories, I realized that I was, out of that bout of depression. And because they were, don't worry about the fact that your latest book is delayed. We will love it when we get it, that sort of thing. That gave me the focus to start writing again. And my first full day back of writing, it was great. It felt so good. And so my readers gave me some clarity and focus. One of the, just as an aside, one of the great things about being an independently published author is that one of the things you need to do is to build up an email list of people who read your books and become fans. And that the group of people that I have, they are amazing people, and I've got to know, just by emailing, I've got to know many of them very well, and they tell me their troubles and we chat on email. And the great advantage of being a self-published author is you have those people there. A traditionally published author, they write their book and they may not get feedback because people typically don't know their email address. So the only thing they can go by is critics. For me to get the feedback from readers is amazing. I can't tell you how great it feels.
I love that, because what I'm hearing is that basically it took having another bout of depression for you to reach out to your readers and get that clarity and certainty and write even better than before. That if you hadn't had that bout of depression, would be missing in your writing. And I see this time and time again. It's so easy to become focused on what's not working because it really isn't working. So it's not marginalizing that. But when you can start going, okay, in it not working, this is what it created, a closeness to your readers and a feedback and an approach and an understanding that's changed the style of how you're writing, even from what I can gather. Am I right there?
Not so much the style, but somehow it seems better. It's very difficult to put into words. It just seems better. But I really appreciate what you're saying there. I'd never thought of the depression in those terms. In fact, what it's done is it gave me a break from writing that maybe I needed to take a break from what I was doing. So I've never really thought of it in a positive light, but don't get me wrong, I'm glad I'm out of the depression, but maybe that there are side benefits to everything. In fact, there are psychological benefits to everything. When people say, ask drug addicts, why are you a drug addict? Well, because of the benefits. I mean, there certainly are benefits to drug addiction, but the lack of them obviously outweighs the small benefit. But I'd never thought of a depression in that term. Thank you very much for that, Janetta. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. In fact, it's two things. What I'm hearing here is I call that time where things feel absolutely blocked and impossible and depression feels so overwhelming. I call it powerful procrastination time. And it's so easy to go into that place where you think you're all wrong for procrastinating. But when you've got the list of where the procrastination doesn't work, but when you can start seeing the list of where it's serving you, and you've just got it then. And, I honor and salute you, because that is amazing. And I'm actually looking forward to reading your books.
Oh, great. Well, I hope you enjoy them. They get a bit dark in places, but
yes. Yeah, I and I'm not an avid reader, so I'm going to get your first book and read it. So thank you for that.
Great. Well, if you go to my website, you can get my first book free. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Robert and Janetta, we have come to the end of our show. It's gone by so quickly. We have another show right after this. But Robert, I would love if you would share with our audience, especially for people who are just getting introduced to you for the first time, how do they go about purchasing your books? You just mentioned the first one can be free. Tell us what we need to know.
The best thing to do is to go to my website, which is robertpfrench.com. And you'll see on the first page all of my books there. They're all available for Kindle, paperback, and large print paperback as well. You can get a Kindle version of my first book free just to try it out. And if you like it, well, enjoy the rest of the books too. But robertpfrench.com is the way to get hold of me. And if you're big into Facebook, Robert P. French author.
Thank you, Robert. And while I have you there, you shared some words earlier in the interview to help people realize they're not alone and to go out and talk to one person. What else can you share in closing with people who are living with depression, feeling suicidal, just they don't know where to turn?
It's very difficult, but sometimes people's depression can go on for extended periods of time. But if you just reach out to one person, and if that's going to be difficult, make that person a doctor. Maybe reach out to not your own family doctor, because you don't want to talk to him about it or her, but reach out to one person. And if that person is a doctor, they will almost certainly be able to help you. I know how difficult it is to make a choice, but if you can make the choice to do that, go for it.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you being here today, and I hope you'll come back and see us again and let us know what you're up to. And that's fantastic. All right. Thank you again, Robert. Please do reach out to him. Please go and get his first book. It is free. Go to Robert P as in Paul French, FRENCH.com. Thank you, sir.
Robert.
Thank you very much indeed. It was lovely to be here.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Janetta, what a great honor it was to have Robert here. And I realized while we're having these discussions, it is so important because, as you know, on one of our shows, we actually had someone writing in that they were in a bad place and you helped them. So these shows are really important because of the education and also the stigma that has been associated with mental health. Let's get rid of that. Okay. That's why we're having these conversations. And we want people to realize that there are options. There is choice, as you always say, Janetta. So please help me close out the show today.
Oh, thank you, Dr. JACALYN. For anybody who'd like to know more about how to powerfully and accurately move through their feeling of overwhelm, their feeling of vulnerability, and if they are feeling depressed or even have suicidal ideation, there is an answer. It's a very accurate answer. It's a set of skills and tools that you can use at all times. And I really can't sing its praises enough, because I'm living proof of having got through what I got through by using them. So if you'd like to know more about the Epiphany process and what it can do for you, you can get hold of me very directly. I get back to you almost instantly at theepiphanyprocess.com. And we can have a chat there as well. And also, one thing we haven't mentioned is worldjenniesday.com. Have a look there. In another show, we'll talk a bit more about World Jenny's Day, but there's a lot of information there as well. A lot of insightful interviews and performances. So thank you, Dr. Jacqueline.
Thank you very much, JENETTA, and I'm honored that we will be hosting World Jenny's Day right here on USA Global TV and Radio.
It's amazing. I've just begun to put together the video to launch the first part of that day, to go around the world as we invite people to make 30-second videos about where in the world they are on World Jenny's Day and what they're doing to celebrate mental health wellness creatively that day. So it's starting. And all here on this platform.
It's fantastic. And I do want to share for those in the States who are listening on the radio, you are not alone, as we keep mentioning. The number for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-8255. And that is available. Someone will be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Also, we have a comment from someone. Good morning, Facebook user. Yes, good morning. Hello. I think it's from our private group, Women's Health and Wellness, and you have to actually give permission to use your name. But thank you. We're glad that you're out there. All right, JENETTA, we are signing off for right now. Our next show is coming up, and it's Talking Heads. It's at a new time for this week for Christine Amy Artner, who's joining us from Vienna. So I look forward to being right back. You stay wherever you are watching us, and I'll run over to the other studio. Thank you, Robert P. French. Thank you, JENETTA. Thank you to each and every one of you. Bye for now.